Thank you, Steve. My name is Jack. I'm an alcoholic. And back from Louisiana and San Diego and all those other points. I don't know how much success I had talking to lawyers about alcoholism in Florida, but they all sat and listened anyway. I come across these things in my desk, and we talk about the big book so much. I came across this description of the big book, and it says the big book. This book reveals the mind of God for alcoholics, the state alcoholics are in, the way of salvation for alcoholics, the doom of alcoholics, and the happiness of alcoholics. Its doctrines are sacred, its precepts are binding, its histories are true, and its decisions are immutable. We read it to be wise, believe it to be safe, and practice it to stay sober. It contains the light to direct us, food to support us, and comfort to cheer us. It is the alcoholic's map and the compass of the group. In it, contented sobriety is open for us, and the gates of hell are disclosed. Sobriety is its grand subject, our good its design, and the glory of contented sobriety its end. It should fill the memory, rule the heart, and guide the feet. Read it slowly, frequently, prayerfully. It is a goldmine of wealth, a paradise of glory, and a river of pleasure. It involves highest responsibility, will reward greatest labor, and condemn all alcoholics who trifle with its contents. Owned it is riches, studied it is wisdom, trusted it is salvation, loved it is character, and obeyed it is power. I thought it was pretty nice about the big book. And attached to this thing, for some reason or other, don't ask me why, is a letterhead from Dr. R.H. Smith, Dr. Bob. And I thought it was interesting for one thing only, that we all know the story of Socrates and drinking the hemlock to commit suicide, and how our drinking is suicide. As a matter of fact, the Hemlock Society is a society that espouses the person's right to take their own life. And Dr. Bob, while he was drinking, his telephone exchange in Akron, Ohio, his telephone number was Hemlock 8523. For the wastebasket of trivial knowledge. One other thing I came across that I thought was pretty interesting for the sixth step, and whether you think it's interesting or not is another matter, but it's a letter from Bill Wilson in May of 1953 to Al Steckman. And as you know, as I've mentioned before, Al Steckman was the first editor of the Grapevine. And Bill talks about emotional sobriety in 1953. And I think we all sometimes have the feeling that Bill Wilson was perfect from his sobriety date in 1934 until he died. And of course he had a lot of troubles that we don't really know a lot about. But this letter of May 1953 gives us a little insight to it. It discusses emotional sobriety, and I'm just going to read some parts of it. I think we oldsters, I hate that word in AA, but that's what he didn't come to seasoned veterans yet. I think that we oldsters who have put AA booze cure to such severe tests, yet still find we lack emotional sobriety, are probably the spearhead for the next major development in AA, the development of something like real maturity and balance, which is to say humility in our relations with ourselves, with our fellows, and with God. And he goes on to say, those adolescent urges for top approval, perfect security, and perfect romance, urges quite appropriate to age 17, proved to be an impossible way of life at 47 or 57. I don't know where he gets that from. And he goes on, and suddenly I realized what the matter was. My basic flaw has always been dependence, absolute dependence on people or circumstances to supply me with prestige, security, and romance. Failing to get these according to my still childish dreams and specifications, I had fought for these things. And when defeat came, so did depression. There wasn't a chance of making the outgoing love of St. Francis a workable and joyous way of life until these fatal and reality absolute dependence were cut away. Plainly, I could not avail myself of God's love until I was able to offer it back to Him by loving others as He would have me. And I couldn't possibly do that so long as I was victimized by my dependencies. For dependency meant demand for possession and control of people and conditions. I don't know where on earth he got that. Control, that's certainly not a problem of us. The real stabilizing thing was having an offering of love to that strange drunk on his doorstep. That was Francis at work, powerful and practical, minus the dependency and minus the demand. I think it will still work with emotional sobriety. If we examine every disturbance we have, great or small, we can find at the root of it some sort of unhealthy dependency and consequent demand. Let's hack away at those chains, begging God's help. Then we shall be set free to live and to love. We shall then be able to 12-step ourselves and others into emotional sobriety. And he ends with saying, well, Al, I haven't offered you a single new idea, just a gimmick that started to unhook my several hexes at depth. My brain no longer races compulsively in either elation, grandiosity, or depression. I have been given a quiet place in bright sunshine. Affectionately, Bill. So, he was still struggling with some things. The sixth step, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character, occupies a little paragraph in the big book, not much at all. And Mary Ann wants me to talk for an hour on it, that's hard, But I was thinking, a lot of small things that you can talk for a great deal of time on, and I'm a lawyer, so I think about, the due process of law, a very simple clause. It can fill volumes, I guess, if you want to explore it and talk about it. So there's no reason why we can't talk about the sixth step at some length and maybe get some ideas that I've had out of my system. I think it's emotional sobriety. I think we begin this emotional sobriety with the sixth step. That emotional sobriety that Bill was talking about in his letter to Al Steckman. I think it's really a change in the way we live. We're sober. We have a fatal disease. But if we don't change the way we live, we're going to die. I think that's the message of these steps. It's certainly the message of the sixth step to me. My own personal, I had one heart attack in, I guess I forget, I was 46 years old at the time, but I had this one heart attack and didn't get my attention, you know. I kept right on with the steak and the hamburgers and the sausage and guess what? I had a slip. I had another heart attack. That second one got my attention. Got my attention. Triple bypass surgery likewise got my attention. But the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, we have to change the way we live if we're going to survive, and we got this fatal disease. And we can't live the way we were living as drunks and think we're not going to pick up a drink again. Not going to happen that way. We have to change the way we live. And the sixth step says that we must be entirely ready to have all these defects of character removed. Now, one time I was talking with my sponsor about this step, and I quoted the step as saying, we're entirely willing to have God remove all these defects of character. And he fell on me like a truck. And he said, the word is ready, Jack, not willing. And there is a big difference between being ready and willing. Several years before I came into AA, I found myself enjoying a drink in the streets of Manhattan. And for some reason or other, it seemed like a very good idea at the time. I was crawling around the streets of Manhattan on all fours, barking like a dog. That seemed like a wonderful idea at the time. On reflection, it does not seem like such a good idea. But that was the way it was with me. I did some very crazy things. And if you asked me then, was I willing to get sober, I certainly would have said, absolutely, I'm willing to get sober. Was I ready to get sober? Far from it. Far from it. I had a long way to go before I was ready to get sober, ready to come into Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, just thinking about Alcoholics Anonymous for a moment, I want to ask you a question. Has there ever been any person, any group, any institution, anybody, or anything that has done as much for you as Alcoholics Anonymous? I don't think there's any question about it that, you know, this is the greatest thing that's happened to all of us. You know, I hear people say, well, I was a functional alcoholic, and I guess that means that they weren't that bad. I guess that's what that means. You know, if functional alcoholics means that you could walk into the room, yeah, that's good. I think we're all functional alcoholics, you know. Otherwise, we'd be locked up under lock and key. So, but, you know, alcoholics come in here, and the change that takes place is miraculous. Well, let me get back to ready. I have an analogy that I use that I stole from somebody. I steal everything. Oh my God. Okay. For some reason, I don't know where I was, but ready, all right. Yes, ready. My sponsor fell on me like a truck because I said willing. And, you know, I'm a lawyer, and if I go into court and I say to the judge, Your Honor, I'm willing to try this case, he would be hysterical. And, you know, I have to answer ready, and ready means that I've got to get prepared. I've got to serve the subpoenas. I have to interview the witnesses. I have to go through the file. I have to do days and weeks of work in order to get ready to try a case. And I think it's somewhat analogous to my front lawn. If you look at my front lawn, it looks somewhat like the Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And I am very willing to have a very nice lawn, very willing. But I'm not ready. And in order for me to be ready to have a nice front lawn, I know what I have to do. I have to dig it all up. I have to turn it over. I have to get all those weeds out. I have to fertilize it. I have to rake it. I have to seed it. I have to roll it. I have to put fencing around it. I have to keep the birds off it. I have to water it. And after I get it all ready, God will grow the grass. But he won't grow the grass until it's all ready. And I think that's very similar to the sixth step. That we have to be ready to have these character defects removed, and God will grow the grass. And we cannot really be ready to have dishonesty removed until we are ready to become honest. We cannot have anger removed unless we're really ready to have it replaced with understanding. We cannot have jealousy and envy removed unless we again have it replaced with some understanding. And all of those defects of character, I think you've got to be ready to replace them all with something positive before God will grow the grass. And if you say, no, I don't want to get rid of that one, or no, I'll never get rid of that one, you know, that can be problems. Can God really do this? Can he really do this? We're asking God to change our personality. That's really what we're asking him to do. Because our personality was a little rotten when we were out there, you know. My personality is my reaction to life. My character is my reaction to life. So I want to change my reaction to life because I don't like the way I'm living. So we're asking God to change our personality. And that may sound simple to say, but we know that people's personalities really do not change. It's like the spots on a leopard. They don't change for some reason. People have a certain personality and they go through life with that personality. Rarely do they change. But in our case, we have to change. You know, they say well, he's a nice guy, but he's got a short fuse. Or he's a nice guy, but you can't trust him. He's a nice guy, but he's a little greedy. He's a nice guy, but he's very sullen. You know, and we have to change that in Alcoholics Anonymous. And can God do it? And I think I've said in the earlier steps that in Alcoholics Anonymous, we get an opportunity not only to know God, but to experience God. We experience God all the time in our groups. We experience what he can do for others and what he has done for us. I mean, could you ever think for one moment that you could be whiskey-free? I never dreamed of being whiskey-free for any real long period of time. And here I come in, I come into this outfit drunk. Matter of fact, it'll be 1 month from today will be 26 years. I come into this outfit drunk. I can't stop drinking. I know I'm going to die if I don't stop drinking. And suddenly, a few months later, I don't want anything to do with booze. It's out of my life. The thing that was 6 months before I stopped drinking, I remember saying to two detectives in White Plains, they're great to drink with, incidentally, detectives. Really. Oh, let me assure you, that's wonderful. I mean, you're protected. Oh, they are just great to drink with. I was telling these two detectives in White Plains that if the alcohol was taken away from me, you might as well put me 6 feet under. It is the only pleasure I have in life. That's all. My family was a pain in the ass. My job was a pain in the ass. The law was a pain. The only pleasure I have, the only enjoyment I have in life is alcohol. And if you take that away, you might as well bury me. That was the state of my thinking 6 months before I came into this program. I remember it very well. And I believed it. And 6 months later, I don't care if people take a bath in it. It'd be a good deodorant, or it'd be a good antiseptic, but I don't want to drink it. Why is that? How did that happen? How did that happen? I don't say it's going to happen in 6 months to everybody, but it happened to me in 6 months. I was driving along one day and I didn't think of a drink. It was noontime. I didn't thought of a drink. Can't believe that. Then a couple days later, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I haven't thought of a drink. Wow. And then the whole days go by. I don't think of a drink. That's a miracle. God did that for me through the people in this program. If he can do that, he can change my personality. That's the proof that I need that he can change my personality. He did that for me. He can do anything. And that's all the proof I needed. This thing really works. God obviously didn't want me to destroy myself with alcohol, and he certainly doesn't want me to go back drinking. And so, if I'm ready, he'll grow the grass. The 12 and 12 tells us that the sixth step is an attitude. So it says that we have this attitude that we're ready to change at all times. You know, this sixth step isn't something you take one day. I always like the six-step box, you know. People come in one side of the box and they go out the other and they're all fine. You know, if we could do that, you know, we'd have a line from here to Yonkers. But we can't do that. It's a process. And the attitude is the sixth step. We always must be willing to change that personality of ours. We always must be willing to improve it, to react better to life than we had in the past. And it's a lifetime job. The 12 and 12 says that we must be content with patient improvement. And I think that's okay, you know. I don't think we have to be angry with ourselves because we're not getting these things done right away. It says that the glaring defects nobody wants to have. Nobody wants to be so angry they're going to murder people. No one wants to be called a braggart. Nobody wants to have so much lust in their heart they commit rape. Nobody wants to be in pain over envy. And no one wants to be paralyzed over sloth. Those are glaring defects. But what about the more benign part of those defects, you know? Are we willing to change that? I think that's what we have to do in AA. Can you sit in a line of traffic, backed up for maybe a half hour, and watch a guy speed by you on the shoulder of the road? Huh? Can you sit there and say, I wish God to bless him? Huh? I wish him health. I wish him happiness. I wish him long life. I wish him all of God's blessings. Can you do that? That's a great reaction to that, isn't it? But that's what we're striving for, I think, you know. Sometimes I think when people come into AA, they should surrender their driver's license. So that's because, you know, you're waiting in a toll line and some poor fellow gets in the wrong line, he's got to cut in front of you, and you want him to grow a beard while he's trying to cut in front of you. But can we stop and can we let that person in? Can we say, I don't know what's going on with that guy driving on his shoulder. Maybe he's got somebody that's very ill that he has to get home to. Maybe it's an emergency in his house. Can we do that? I think that's, you know, the understanding of other people's actions is so important to us. And is that a good beginning to changing a personality? I believe it is. Are we ready not to feel superior to the guy who slips all the time? You know, the guy comes in, he gets 2 weeks sober, he's not drunk. You know, we have that, oh, that, I got mine, you know. This poor bastard, he's in real trouble, you know. Can we let go of that superior feeling that we have among other people? And we really are superior to no one. You know, we got this thing, and thank God we got it. And it's really through no great shakes on our part. I mean, the truth is known. All you have to do is show up in AA. Just show up, and you're going to get it, you know. Show up. It's a great, great program. Doesn't require a laboratory. Doesn't require any special tools. Doesn't require any special area of expertise. It doesn't require a lot of training, you know. Just show up, and it works. So we have no real reason to feel superior to anybody, you know. The drunk that comes off the street needs the same help that we got. And can we do that? Are we ready to admit that our ambition is really greed? A lot of us cover that up, you know. Well, I'm a very ambitious guy, and he had to be fired, and I, you know, this way I got some more money, and, you know, greed and ambition are things that we have to work on. Can we turn lust into a sensible outlook on sex? Can we do that? That's a problem, I know, for many. But that's what we have to shoot for. Protect me from being right. I heard that when I came in. I thought the guy was insane. I said, what are you talking about? Protect me from being right. He was a retired cop, name of Jimmy Sullivan, and he was a great AA guy. I couldn't identify with him at all, but, you know, he was a drunk and he drank differently than I did, but so did most people. But Jimmy said to me, protect me from being right. I said, what the hell are you talking about? He said, when I'm right, watch out. You know, that self-righteous anger that comes up, you know, that you got to stay out of my way because I'm right. Do you understand? I'm right. God, it's such a dangerous thing, self-righteous anger. You know, the guy that, the storekeeper that cheats you, I mean, do you have to fly off the handle? Do you have to scream and yell, I'm right, you did this, let me show? I mean, I don't have to explain it to the people in this room. You know what you do. I did this, and let me prove this to you. I did that, I did this, and I'm right. You understand? I'm right. Congratulations. We had cards printed up in my group years ago. You're right cards. Give your guy a card. You're right. Okay? Now, you know, I hope you feel better. You're right. You're right. But what does it do with our personality? I think that's what we're trying to work on, that emotional sobriety. Procrastination. great five-syllable word for sloth. I mean, or dishonesty. You know, my problem is procrastination. That means he's not getting his job done. That's what that means to me. Wherever he is, he's not getting his job done. Whatever he's supposed to do, he's not doing. Procrastination is not an excuse. It's dishonesty. We face up to that and get things done. And sometimes that's difficult for all of us. I used to write a list of things that I had to do each day, and I would cross them off as I got up. And it works, you know. It works. But we have to be ready to replace these things with some positive character assets. And I think it all boils down to, are we really ready to have God grow the grass? Because as much as God pours down the sunshine, if it's not ready, he will not grow the grass. Now I have my questions for step 6. My sponsor says surrender, let go and let God, right? I think surrender has a great deal to do with step 6. You know, that our problem is self-centeredness. And surrender, I think, if you think about it, you know, the first step is I'm powerless. It's a bit of surrender. The next step is I can't even run my own life. You know, I need a power greater than my own to restore me to sanity. The third step is I really need some kind of a manager. The fourth step is I write down all the disgusting things about myself. And the fifth step is I tell it to somebody else. There's a lot of surrender in those first 5 steps, a lot of it. And if you don't begin to wave the white flag at this booze, or you don't begin to wave the white flag at these character defects, it's going to be a problem. I think surrender is a great part of it. How can I tell if I'm entirely ready? God will remove the defects of character. That's how you know. I need to be reminded that being entirely ready is just for today. I think that's the attitude of step 6. Step 6 being an attitude is really just for today. I mean, you know when you have been dishonest, reluctant to confront a fear. You know the way most of us confront fears? We pray to God that the fear goes away. We pray to God that the thing that's giving us the fear disappears. We don't pray for the courage to confront the fear. We pray that it goes away. Now that's really the wrong tactic, isn't it? That doesn't help our personality one bit. We confront the fear, and we talk English, or we do what has to be done. We don't pray that it goes away. We pray that we have the strength and the courage to confront the fear. And we do that on a daily basis. The 12 and 12 claims that this step separates the men from the boys. In what way? Glad you asked that question. The boys in the 6th step go after changing that part of their personality they can live with. That's what the boys do. I'm being politically incorrect, I know that. The men change their personality to what they believe God expects of them. That's the difference between the men and the boys in the 6th step. I'm sure of that because I read it. Do we have to hit a bottom with a defect before we can be entirely ready? I don't believe so. I think you're uncomfortable with your defects. I don't think it's a question of hitting bottom like with a drunk. I mean, when I come in here, I thought I was going to die. That's why I came in here. I didn't come in for any other reason. I would assume that that's a bottom, but no, I don't think you have to hit bottom. I think you have to be uncomfortable. And when you're tired of being uncomfortable with a defect, you'll do something about it. Or when someone tells you about it. You know, we go through this life and no one really ever criticizes us about our defects of character. As a matter of fact, I was kidding around with my wife the other day, and I said, you know, I'll admit that yours truly probably has some defects of character. And she said, I think I'm going to die. I think I see Jesus, she said. What a reaction to that. So, nobody tells you what, you didn't handle that well. I didn't like the way you reacted to that, And so anything, be uncomfortable or you want to be a better person. I was told to keep it simple. Ask for help in the morning, say thank you at night, and leave the rest to God. Right. Absolutely. This is a simple program. And just show up. I know you have to do the steps, and I know you have to be a member of your group, but I think that all comes to you if you just show up. Just sit in that chair and listen, and comes great. If I live in the now, I'll get the right perspective on this step, right? Well, I don't know how you can live any way else, in anything else but the now. The only thought I have is the present thought. Anything I'm thinking about is the past. Anything that I'm thinking about in the future is the future. The now is now. We can't live in anything else but the now. We can't live in tomorrow. We can't live in the past. We have to live in the now. And, the great part about this program is it finally explained that to me, that I don't have to really be concerned about yesterday and tomorrow, because I don't know what's going to happen. We really don't know what's going to happen. And that's the only way to do it. If God wanted you to live more than 24 hours a day, He would have made the days longer. But He didn't. He made them 24 hours, and that's all you can do, is to live right in the now. And I think the attitude of this step, or the concept of this step being an attitude for patient change in your personality, is very important. It's not going to happen suddenly. I didn't lose the desire to drink suddenly. It happened over a period of time. And although, as I admitted to Mrs. Keegan just shortly ago, that I do have perhaps one or two defects of character, my personality has been changed. I'm not the same guy that walked in this room. I don't go into the rages anymore. I don't do that anymore. I give the clients an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. I'm very concerned with that. I keep after them. My personality has changed, and it's not just because I stopped drinking. It's because I put the sixth step into my life, and I wanted to have. I knew I had to change my lifestyle, just as I knew I had to change my lifestyle because of my heart disease. I'm a drunk. I got a terminal illness. I have a friend of mine, every time we pull in to a parking lot, he says, "Park in a handicapped spot. I have a terminal illness." I said, I don't think they're going to buy that. But I'll just tell you one story before I close. There's nothing to do with the sixth step, but I thought I liked the story. I don't even know if the story's true, but was told to me. I was in Seattle a few years ago, not at the convention, but at an American Bar Association meeting. And I was at an AA meeting, and there was a guy that was talking about a sponsor, and the sponsor's name is Charlie. Charlie has about 25 years in the program, just about 5 years ago. And Charlie's story is as follows, and this was told by a sponsor of his. He said that Charlie was around AA for a couple of weeks. He was a traveling salesman, and it wasn't coming together. AA was not making sense to him. It just didn't fit. He was all confused. And he landed at the Seattle airport, and he called his office, and his office said, "You got to take the next plane to Anchorage." And Charlie hadn't been home, I must say, Charlie had been sober maybe about 2 months. He hadn't been home for 2 weeks, and he really wanted to get home, and he didn't want to go on his plane to Anchorage, and he really couldn't figure out AA, and it was getting to him, and he was heading straight for the cocktail lounge before he got on the plane to Anchorage. And as he went for the cocktail lounge, he bumped into somebody, and he turned and he looked, and the guy had a 12 and 12 sticking out of his side pocket because it wouldn't fit in the side pocket, just stuck out. So he said, "Excuse me, can I have a cup of coffee with you?" And the guy said, "Yeah." And they talked and talked, and they didn't have much time to get on a plane. But as he got on the plane, Charlie's company had put him up front in first class, and this guy went in the back, and he said, "Charlie, on the way to Anchorage, why don't you read the 12 and 12? And he did. He read the 12 and 12 on the way to Anchorage. And when he was finished with it, it all meshed. It all fit. He felt good. He felt comfortable in AA, felt that was the place he belonged. The program made sense to him. He wanted to be sober. This was the way to live. And when the plane landed, he waited for this guy to get off the plane to give him back the book. And he waited, and he waited, and the guy never got off the plane. He wasn't on the plane. That's the way it was described to me. And Charlie went back to his group and told the group his story. And Charlie's sponsor said, "You have been touched by an AA angel." That's the story, as told to me. I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but that's the story. And I just think it's a nice AA story, and I'll close with it.